It is the third model introduced in the 2025 Shin Megami Tensei DeviKids collaboration with Medarot S. This is DVC02 Maoucifer, with a mostly new kit of Thunder Beam, Desolation Shot, Diminish, Float Legs, and the leg ability of Auto Charge, which passively fills the charge gauge every turn no matter what action is completed. Now, in contrast to Makai Setsuna and Cerbero Cool, which introduced a lot of brand new skills to the game in the first week of the collaboration, Maoucifer doesn't seem to have to play by those same kind of rules. Now, it does introduce a couple of new skills, but the mechanics themselves are, in a sense, kind of an alternative or side tier to things that we already see, with a little bit of an extra perk added here and there. Thunder Beam on the head part, and the first time we've seen this properly since the Godzilla collaboration, is a optic attribute attack that when attacking the enemy also inflicts a stack of negative symptom thunder on them. So this means that this not only has a optic attribute, which means it'll get a double and triple damage bonus at 30 and 100% charge respectively, but the thunder element of it also allows Maoucifer to also stun enemies and buy him or the allied team a little bit extra time when it comes to being able to plan and coordinate allied movements. And being able to stall also means that all hits are guaranteed to land no matter what. They can guard against the enemy attack to reduce the damage, but the hit is guaranteed to land no matter what while they're stalled. And yet they also are freed from the thunder state when they are attacked again or a certain amount of time passes. Desolation Shot on the right arm is... I called it a brand new skill only because it technically is, but the short answer of it is that it behaves very similarly, almost exactly, to Desolation that was introduced with Cosmo Lagan from the Gurren Lagann collaboration. The difference is Cosmo Lagan's was a melee skill, whereas Maoucifer's is a shooting skill, but they both behave the exact same way. Explaining it briefly, it requires 30 CG to use right from start, and if you do not have it in your gauge, you cannot use Desolation Shot, much like, say, Emit Blade, Emit Shot, and so on. But upon consuming 30 CG, it doubles the amount of damage that the attack deals, and it gives it piercing as an added effect. Furthermore, if it manages to target a part the enemy was going to use, had used, or is intercepting a non-meta change shield, such as in heating, cooling, or intercepted and defended, it behaves as destroy. So this means it can be very good for non-meta change shield busting, as well as having a very nice added effect bonus on top of that. It is worth noting though that if the destroy behavior triggers and is procced, then it does not behave with the double damage and the piercing instead. So it is either a one or the other when it comes to how it behaves. Diminish on the left arm is the other brand new skill, which behaves very similarly to a lighter version of Static, the best way I could describe it. Simply explained, Diminish, when attacking an enemy, the part it damaged has its HP reduced by 1/3 of its remaining HP, period. No questions asked. This means that if it is simply just one part, 1/3 of whatever's left instantly. If it is a meta change type model, it is 1/3 of their entire health bar off the top, no questions asked. So this makes it very, very useful for being able to cut down enemy shields or particularly bulky walls that are trying to outlast you with sheer bulk and armor more than trying to actually brute force you. However, the big question I see asked a lot about this is, if it's only going to be taking 1/3 of the remaining HP, and we already have Static in the game, which takes 50% of the remaining HP instead of 1/3, what makes Diminish any more useful? Well, the best justification I was able to come up with was the fact that, let's say if the player does not have Static right away, or perhaps is in need of multiple parts that can shred armor at once, well, it still does provide an option. Now, one thing to note as well is, much like Static, Diminish also cannot break things either. Float Legs means that Maoucifer will have fairly solid coverage across all terrains at A rank across the board, minus, of course, S rank on Cyber, and its leg stats are actually pretty solid for what it brings to the table. A solid mobility of 913 is really good in the speed department, so right off to a fairly good start there. An evade of 1084 isn't too shabby, as it means it can dodge or graze pretty much as it feels the need to, as long as it's not caught in a no dodge, no defend penalty status. But its melee resist of 1302 and its shoot resist of 1494 with a heavy support of 2 actually make it a pretty good leg. So even if you perhaps may not be dodging a whole bunch, you still have good speed and some fairly good above average bulk for keeping the damage as low as possible. In the armor department, he is fairly stocky there too, with a head armor of just barely 4,500, right arm almost 4,400, left arm almost 41, and legs almost 4,200. So fairly stocky in the armor department and in the damage reduction. So you will have to hit him fairly harder than most if you want to cut him down to size and what he brings to the table. All this being said though, as a pure set score, I honestly have to rate Maoucifer a pretty decent, upper middle of the road 6.5 out of 10, primarily on the grounds that what he does, he can do well, but it is also a very strange kit in how it chooses to go about it. Now, Diminish you can honestly use as kind of a filler move basically anywhere, so even if you don't have 30 CG to use Desolation Shot right away, it does give you a pretty decent option, and then you can kind of follow up with Desolation Shot where you can, and just kind of follow up with that very easy breakage. Or if you need to stall an enemy, you also have Thunder Beam available to you. But it is also very weird the fact that since Thunder Beam does not have any added effects except the damage bonus, it does make it kind of decent for spot nuking more than anything else. However, it is also worth noting that it does synergize fairly well thanks to auto charge, so even if it does take a couple turns to break things, you are still able to kind of feed back into yourself decently well between auto charge and Desolation Shot, and then maybe a couple extra added hits in there just to kind of keep things flowing. But a relatively high heating and cooling on Diminish at 865 and 733 respectively does actually mean that he can fire this off fairly quickly without anything getting in his way. As mixed parts, I do have to rate him just a little bit higher at a 7 out of 10 for these same reasons. While the kit itself as a pure set can work, theoretically, with a couple minor bumps in the road, mixing it up is probably where you're going to get the best bang for your buck. Desolation Shot plus, say, auto charge legs or even a full charge head with a good synergetic metal for CG sustain might be really, really good. Diminish you could probably use just about anywhere because of its HP reduction capability. And the legs with auto charge, of course, mean it can feed with anything that you're looking for that requires CG sustain. And of course, if you need it for anything, Thunder Beam is good to hold on to just in case. But between that, Desolation Shot, and Diminish, you probably may not see it super often, if at all.